Welcome, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Britta Guldmann, and I'm a conversational AI specialist at Artificial Solutions. And today I'm going to walk you through the news in Teneo 7.1, which is the latest version of the Teneo platform that will be rolling out to you anytime soon. Okay, so for you to be prepared for what is coming, we've organized this session so you can get an introduction to all the features. If you've already had a look at the release notes, you have any questions, etc., then we can have a look at those as well. Okay. So first of all, just the highlights of what you should expect to see in 7.1. The first one is, let's say, the most important one, which I've just summarized in one line here, which is more features in Teneo Studio Web. So as you know, as of Teneo 7, we have now also Teneo Studio Web. And we are working hard on making all the features available there so you can have the full experience for developing your conversational AI solutions on the web. And we'll have a look at what are all those features that have been added in 7.1. Then another one of the highlights in 7.1, which applies to both the web version and the desktop version, is that you can now have multiple global scripts. Okay, so that means that you, instead of having, let's say, one big script for the different script events, you can now split it into different pieces, and we'll have a look at what that looks like and how you can do that. It also has an impact on this one in particular, has an impact on how you work with the localization setup. So if any of you have solutions in multiple languages and you use the localization setup, well, then we'll see also what that actually means now, the fact that you have the option of working with multiple global scripts. Okay. We have extended also the public API for Teneo Studio, so you can now do more things in Teneo Studio through an API call. And then there are, of course, different technology and deployment updates also with all the tech stack that sits below the whole platform, which gets updated as well every time there's a new release. So tech stack updates, and there's one particular, let's say I'm going to highlight particularly some updates also regarding Teneo Learn, so you are aware of them. Nothing to be worried about, but just want to highlight it so you know what is coming. Okay, so those are the highlights, the headers of what we'll be talking about in this session. Good. So Teneo Studio Web. The first iteration of Teneo Studio Web allowed you to create solutions. It allowed you to create language objects, entities, flows. You could do, let's say, a simple tryout, etc. Let's say the basic stuff to be able to build some very simple things in the web. Now with the 7.1 release, you will be able to do much more. Okay, so first of all, you're now going to get access to all of these global elements, so to global variables, global listeners, global scripted context, and global scripts. Okay, so all of these features in the platform are now also available in Teneo Studio Web. You can work with your integrations also now in Teneo Studio Web, create them, update them, etc. All of that is also available now from the web. You can work with your file resources. So if you have that in your solution or thinking about having that, well, now you can also manage those from the web. There's a new, let's say, more from a usability feature. There's a built-in way of opening documents in different tabs. So instead of just, let's say, working in one tab and going back and forward, now you can actually, in a native way, open multiple documents in different tabs. So you can, the same way you have windows when you work on the desktop, well, you can have multiple tabs to work on different things at the same time. We have also implemented the read-only and the edit modes, these two modes that you know from the desktop. They have also been made available now in Teneo Studio Web, and of course is fully aligned with the desktop. And so if somebody's working on the desktop and another person is working on the web, these two modes will of course communicate with each other, so you don't overwrite or overlap in what you're doing. That compatibility is fully built out. And then finally, we have also added in notifications in tryout to take tryout one step further. It's still not the advanced tryout that you know from the desktop version, but it will tell you now if you need to reload, if you have a warning, if you have an error, these things that makes it easier to understand what's going on if tryout, if it's not responding. Okay, so that is what we will be getting now in 7.1. And then of course, more to come, right? This is a journey that we're on with Teneo Studio Web, and now we're on, let's say, second step of the journey, and there will be more because as you can, let's say, deduct here, there are still other features that are not available, and for some things you do still need to go into the desktop version to be able to do everything. But with these new additions here, we have added in a lot of new options for developing in the web. If you have any questions or comments along the way, just interrupt me, write a comment or raise your hand. Then I'm happy to stop my explanation and respond to your questions, right? So we make it relevant for you. Don't worry about that. Just interrupt me. You can also write it in the chat if you prefer to do so. But any questions or any comments are more than welcome.
I have a quick question, Britta.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Is there going to be support for like the master and child solutions in web soon?
It is the plan, yeah. Soon, I cannot say how soon, but it is true that that's one of the limitations, that you cannot currently work on master, well, on the localization setup as such in the web, but it is on the roadmap. I cannot say if it's going to be the next iteration or the one after, but we are fully aware that, of course, that this is one of the features that a lot of you are using, so it is definitely on the radar.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So just a little preview here of what it looks like with all of these new documents or elements that you can access now from the web. This is let's say a screenshot from the dashboard that you have in the Teneo Studio Web, where you can see now that we have all the representations of all the new elements that you can access. So they are in the same style as you've seen if you've seen the 7.0 version, where you can see an overview of your flows and language objects and entities. Well, now you can see this overview also of all the global elements, including, yeah, as you can see, a little feature here with your icons. So if you've added icons to your integrations, you can see which ones they are, and you can see the count of your resources, etc. So this is what it looks like. Other, let's say, new features, as I mentioned, is that you can open the documents in tabs, and it's done in either of these two ways that you can see here. So simply holding down Control and then clicking on the element will open a new tab, or you do right click and open a new tab. Okay. The read only mode and edit mode. So you have both of those. And then the notifications in tryout. I hopefully will not get any notifications in tryout when we go to look at it in a little while. So I included a screenshot here so you can see what it looks like in case you run into it. But yeah, that's what it's going to look like. So you're going to get these kind of notifications here, and you can then go and reload your engine if that is what is required. And that's it. Then let's just have a look at what it looks like instead of me talking here. I'm just going to find my window. Okay, good. So here we have it. So this is the logged in version, as you can see here. Nothing has changed here. You have the overview of all your solutions. But if I now go in here in my solution, I get this overview that we had already with all the flows, entities, language objects, and the solution structure in general. And here below now we have all the new stuff. So in this one here, I don't have as many elements as I had in the screenshot, so I don't get so many colors and it doesn't look so nice. But you can see here, I have the option to go in to all these new elements. I can see, again, information buttons here, so I can understand what all of these elements are. Or I can go directly to add a new script, for instance, or I can go and look at the ones that I have. Okay, so if I add one here, I get the pop-up and then I'm guided through it, the steps. I'm not going to go through this one in particular just now because we'll have a look at that in a second when we look at the global scripts. Okay, but otherwise I can go here to my list of global scripts and I can see everything that I have in my solution. Okay, so that is what it looks like. Same for variables, all of the rest. You can go in here and you can see what the whole list of things. Very similar to what you can see in the desktop, but of course with the look and feel of the web. Integrations is the same thing also. So here I have one integration, the weather integration here. I can go here and I can have a look at them. And I can go in and I can see all the methods and I can work with it, all of that that we have in the integrations, that is available and accessible here. Good. And the files, same for the files. I can see I have 5 files. They're all of the same type here, so they're all placed in the same library or all the same location. So I don't get any colors, but I can go in here. I can see which one, who they are, what they are. I can even see the size here and etc. So that is, let's say, nothing new in terms of what you can do. It's simply made available to you here. But one thing I did want to, let's say, if we have a look at this here, if I now do control and then click on my weather integration, you can see I got my new tab here. And then it's connecting into my weather integration. I'm opening it directly in a new tab. So that's one of these other features that I mentioned, that we can now simply by clicking control and then clicking on the element, go into it. I don't lose the overview, but I want to work now on these other integrations. Well, then I can go in and I can open them with a control and a normal left click. And then I get all the elements opened in new tabs. Yeah. In terms of the rest here, up here, flows, entities, language, objects, and solution structure, there's no changes here in what you get. So that all works the same as it did in the Teneo 7.0 version. Okay. So then I wanted to also just show you the, let's say, the edit read-only mode here. So if I now go to my flow list and I look for my greeting message, I have that one open in my desktop version with a different user. So just to show you here that this, now I'm going to get these kind of notifications here where I can see that somebody, myself in this case, I'm already open inside this document, and then I can choose to open it in read only. So I get to see the content, but I cannot edit it. Okay, so exactly the same as you can do in the desktop, but that is now also implemented here in the web version. So yeah, that is what we have here. We can use the normal control and scroll to make it larger and bigger, and control and drag to move around in the flow. So all of that is available here in case you hadn't used it before. Good. Questions, comments about this one here? All these new web features? No. Good. Let's see, try out. I have some messages here. I have no warning, so I cannot show you right now how it would look like if I would have to reload. So right now, well, we saw the screenshot. This is what it looks like. And I have my try. I can go and talk to my conversational AI assistant here. Okay, so let me then go back to the presentation just to present the next topic. Okay, this was the Teneo Web version, or let's say web topic. If you have more questions about the web, as I said, do go ahead and ask them now. You can also wait till later if there's something you want to ask, but you didn't think about it yet. So go ahead and ask your questions. As I said, some features are still not available. So if you want to publish, for instance, you still have to go to the desktop. But now, well, you can build a lot of the content here without having to go to the desktop if you want to try it out, how to work with it on the web. Good. So the next feature that we have that applies to both versions of the platform is multiple global scripts. Okay. And what does that mean? That actually means now that you can split your global scripts into smaller blocks of code. Up until now, you've had everything, for instance, in the begin dialog event, right? You had everything in one big chunk of code. As of 7.1, you can now split those scripts into smaller pieces of code. You can give them a name, and then you can order them in the way that you want them to be executed. Okay, so it's basically similar to the way that you would order your triggers. You would say this one should come first, this one the next, etc. You can do the same with your global scripts now. And that, of course, is very convenient when you are working, when you have big scripts, right? Because then you can have more people working on the same script event at the same time, which was something that you couldn't do up until now, right? So if one person was working on the begin dialog script, then another person could not do so. By splitting now your global scripts into smaller chunks of code, well, then you can have one person working on the set calendar values element, and you can have another one working on the retrieve and store release environment, for instance. So that makes your work more effective, and it really enhances the collaborative features that we have in the platform. It's also going to make your life easier in terms of finding out where do my different pieces of code sit, because you can then have them clearly identified with the name, right? So you don't have to look through many lines of code to find that exact piece that you're looking for. You can just look for the name and then find the right piece of code that you're interested in working on. For, as I said in the beginning here, for the localization setup, that also has this new feature has the impact that you can actually now have global scripts that are, let's say, not included in the localization setup if you want to. So you can now decide which ones of these pieces of code you want to share with your local solutions and which ones you do not want to share. And you can actually even set up scripts in your local solution also now. So you get enhanced control there, enhanced features for localizing or creating your specific setup in your local solution. You don't have to build in all the let's say, the differences in one single script. You can now go into your local script and then make sure that it contains only what you need for your local solution. And the other way around, you can have content in the master that you do not share with the locals because it's specific to the master solution, for instance. So that is one of the big new features also. And I wanted to show you also what that looks like, so you can get an idea about what that will mean for you when you start working. So for that, we're just going to go back in here into our studio, okay? And if I have a look here at all the scripts, you can see I still did not split it up here. I just have one chunk of code for all the different events that I have inside my solution. So what if I go in here, you can see I have different pieces. So I could split this up here. I have, let's say, 3 units of code here in my global script. So I could, for instance, say that I wanted to now split out these into 3. So let's say I want to take the release environment here out into a separate one. So I could cut that out here, and then I would save it. Okay. Something went wrong. Of course, something has to go wrong now. So let me just go back here. Okay, let's try again. Otherwise, we can just try to. There it was. Okay. So if now I go back here and then I say I want to add a new global script, then I'm prompted to select what type I want to create. And I want to create a begin dialog script. This is what we had here, what I'm going to create. So I'm going to create that one. I'm going to give it a name. And the one I want that I was copying out here was the get the release environment. Okay, I can add a description if I want to. That is optional. I don't have to, but maybe again, if you have multiple developers on the project, it can be useful to have a description. Then I will create it and I will paste in the code that I just copied out or cut out before, and then I can save it. Yeah. Okay, and if I now go back here to my global scripts, you can see I have 2 pieces of global script here. If I want to reorganize them, then I can do this by dragging and dropping here. You can see I get the handle so I can move them around. So when I'm on the web, it's as simple as that for reordering my global scripts when I have multiple elements. Okay. If I am in the desktop, it looks a little bit different. So if I look here at my desktop version, I can go in, you can see now I have my 2 elements here. If I want to reorder them, then I would go here at the bottom. You can see I get the edit now for the script ordering, and then I have the arrows to move it up and down. Okay, so here I can order my scripts when I have multiple entries in below the same event. So that is what it looks like in these two different versions of the platform. Sorry, somebody was just coming in here. Good. Okay, so that is what I'm getting here. Multiple script blocks of the same event type. So I can organize my global scripts and I can collaborate better on these different elements here. It also has, let's say, this option here that comes with one additional advantage, which is that if you have to import one solution into another solution, let's say you're moving content from one solution to another solution and both have content, right? Whenever you import a solution into another one, now with these new script events here, or script block codes, the new piece of global script will simply be put, let's say, at the bottom of the order here, where before you could potentially have a conflict. If you had a script in both solutions, you could potentially have a conflict. Now, as of 7.1, that conflict will not occur because the new or the imported script events will simply be placed at the bottom of the scripts that you have here in the order of the script events. Okay, so let's say there is one potential conflict, which could happen in a remote case that your global script have the same ID. So if they let's say under the hood, they have the same ID, then they would overwrite as they have done previously. But if the IDs are different, then you're not going to have any import conflicts. All of the scripts, they're simply going to go into the order at the bottom of the order. So if you have begin dialog scripts in the solution that you're importing, well, then they would be placed here as number 3, 4, 5, however many you would have in the solution that you're importing. Yeah. Questions about the global multiple global scripts? You're saying if you have Ruby classes in a script in pre-processing, are they visible in the other script types, or would I have to add them again, please? So you mean if you're calling on a class, if you're instantiating a class in one of the events, is that what you're referring to, Kate?
Yes, I'm just thinking because a good way of organising the bits of Groovy is to put them into classes so they can be reused. But I'm thinking I'd still have to put my Groovy class script in both pre and post processing for my Groovy classes to be seen, wouldn't I?
Yeah, well, if there are different events in the line, then you would have to do that in any case. So, but if they're within, let's say, if you have multiple pre-processing script that uses the same Groovy class, that's actually a good question. If you would have to instantiate them in all the events.
Because I'm wondering if the sort of namespace is all the scripts here,
yeah.
Whether it's the individual types, but
yeah.
Well,
That's something that. Sorry.
You could probably put those. Like you could probably just instantiate stuff as your first script in each of them. So in begin dialog, get any of the classes or imports you need, since it'll do that one first. I guess we'd have to probably check.
Yeah, I'm going to confirm that, Kate.
That's interesting.
I'm going to get back to you because right now I'm not 100% sure if let's say if the different events can communicate, or if what happens in one will be, let's say, a world of its own.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I need to get a 7.1 sandbox, I think, so I can play as well. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Good. Okay. So then the next round of updates we have here are regarding the public API. We've added new endpoints to the Studio API here, where you can now also handle all these elements that you can see here. You can handle global scripts, you can handle file resources, you can export the settings of your input processor, you can export solutions, you can get solution statistics, and you can get or put solution owners. Okay, so those are the new endpoints that have been added into the Studio API. You have the full documentation here in the links, or if you're looking to use the Studio API, if you're not doing it already, then you can have a look at all the different methods, the different endpoints available in this link here. I can just open it, and then I can share the link here. So you also have it for reference, okay? But you have all the documentation here. So you can see there were already a lot of methods available from the previous releases, but now we've added in these new ones here. So I've just shared the link with you in the chat in case you want to have a look and see what you can do now, what you could do before, and then with these new methods available as well. Good. Then in terms of the technology and the whole tech stack, what has happened here? Just let's say listing here some upgrades in terms of the tech stack. What versions have been updated here? So you can see we have different updates with Kafka, Java, Cassandra for Inquire, and then the Tomcat version. In terms of the update that happens with Cassandra, when you upgrade, then there are some upgrade steps required. Okay, so when you go to 7.1 with your solution, there are some upgrade steps required. If you're hosted by us, or if you're in SaaS, that is something that we will take care of. If you're self-hosted, then you just need to be aware that there are some steps that you need to do. All of these steps are described in the update and migration release notes. So let's say they're fully visible. So you can go read about them there in the service desk knowledge base. Okay, it basically has to do with the logs that they have to be imported again, so that the new version of Cassandra can take let's say can be updated and start running. But again, those of you who are with us on SaaS, you don't have to do anything. We will take care of it for you. Then in terms of Teneo Learn, as I said in the beginning, we've also updated Teneo Learn, different, let's say, of the dependencies or different of the tech stack that we're using for Teneo Learn. Again, listing here the components in case it's something that you want to look into. But what I want to highlight here is that some of these third-party libraries, in particular Spark and the mlib, they have been optimized. And that means that you may see some slightly different results in your machine learning model compared to what you're seeing currently on Teneo.7. Okay, so this is just something to be aware of, that if you're after the upgrade, if you see that that there is a slightly different behavior, that could be the reason. Okay, so we haven't seen anything major, but want to highlight it anyway, so you're aware in case you see a slightly different results compared to what you were seeing before. Good, and that actually brings me to the end here of the presentation. If you want to learn more about this version of the platform, then we of course have all the release notes. We have the guide for Teneo 7. We have all the platform documentation available online, etc. And if you have questions about this release, well, then you know we're here to answer them either in the forum or by reaching out to your customer success manager. And then we're more than happy to help. Well, thank you all for joining, and I hope we'll talk again soon.